Even now, I want to launch the Internet Mastermind podcast, and even doing that, I was like early on talking to some big names in the internet marketing industry and saying, "Man, you want to do this podcast? Can I get you on?" And I was getting a lot of yeses. I never actually did the podcast yet, but I was getting people like, "Yeah, sure." A lot of people when you're starting out and you're doing something, and they kind of see that you're ambitious of whatever you want to do, people usually want to support you. So that's what I find. There's an old saying or a video, whatever, with Steve Jobs talking about how he wanted to get a job at Intel, and at the time, the founder of Intel, his name was just like in the phone book. So he just looked him up in the phone book and called him and said, "Can I get a job?" And then he just gave him a job, doing whatever at Intel. So you just got to kind of reach out and ask. I think it's a secret.
You know what, Matt, though, I don't want you to sell yourself short, though, because back in those internet mastermind days when I was still in Vancouver, I attended a bunch of your events, and you definitely developed the reputation. And Vancouver has a massive marketing community, and part of me definitely misses being in Vancouver because of having that kind of connection and showing up at those events, because you got to notice the same faces at all these events. And you always did a wonderful job of bringing out some pretty big names to give these presentations. And I don't want you to sell yourself short there, because I think in no short part was that due to your energy, your positiveness, your warm energy. You know what I mean? Like, it really does. It does come down to the founder, CEO, or the host of the podcast to really be the constant the constant variable throughout all the different episodes. And we just all got you back in those days. We all just got used to Matt, like, coming up on stage and doing your intro and then bringing on the big name and like, let's do what are the takeaways here? What can we learn from this? How can we apply this stuff? And it was, you were the constant factor throughout all of those events. And I'd like to think that a lot of these guests were more than happy to grow their reach and their authoritativeness by speaking on your stage, but they're also going to be much more likely to agree when you approach them with the right attitude and the right warm energy, which you always did. You always did, man. You always knew how to deliver to people. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's actually, once you get the ball rolling on something like that, like with Internet Masterminds, people always wondered, like, how do you do an event every Monday night and get all these great speakers? And it was like, and I didn't even know. Just kind of like, it just happens. Like, it wasn't like a work to do, because people would approach me and ask, but like, it would just, in a way, I can kind of like choose who I wanted to bring on, because we had the biggest stage. We were getting the audience every single week, so, once you get to that size, and like you can get kind of, whoever you want, as long as, in that case it was local, so a lot of people would want to get on there. And also the opportunity of like speaking on stages, when you're doing local events, is you're getting, video of you on stage and photos. So a lot of the people we're getting, they were from like either big companies, or they had a lot to share, but they didn't have their own platform to be able to speak on. So that's why they would look for those things. So I think that's what happens, is once you kind of get the ball rolling, things just kind of fall into place, and it's not so much work, right? It's more just kind of like, reaching out to someone like, hey, let's chat, let's get on the podcast or whatever. And it's not like a big ask, if we try to get like Donald Trump on the podcast right now, 0% chance it's going to happen. Right. But in a few years from now, if this was a political show, I don't know, I'm sure he would love to come on the show. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. And actually, before you